friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. It is halfway through the month of April, and of course it's time to look at the books that I have read so far this month. I went on Goodreads to take a look and make sure I had all of the books here in my stack, and somehow only 4 books were marked, and I have a stack of 8. I kind of keep them separate in a pile as I finish them, so I'm not sure what my problem has been with Goodreads lately. I got out of the habit of using it consistently during March, and I need to get back into it because I rely on Goodreads when it's time to do wrap-ups. And I just want to make sure I have all of my books on there. So I need to get better at that. But I do have 8 books here to talk about. 9, actually. I have 1 DNF, 4 audiobooks, and 4 books that I read in print. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to start with the print books because they have the one that I read first in the month of April. I did a book scavenger hunt to choose my TBR with my patrons, and the book, it got down to 2 choices, and they chose for me to read The Lost for Words. I want to say The Lost for Words Bookshop because I know it's called that other places. This one is just called Lost for Words by Stephanie Butland. I was thinking this one was going to be lighthearted and fun. It's about a woman named Loveday who works in a bookshop, but this was pretty emotional and sad to a degree. This book was gifted to me by Becca from Hicks Picks Books. Thank you, Becca. I think it was for my birthday last year that she sent this to me. So I'm so thankful for that. So even though this was not the lighthearted, fluffy read that I was thinking it was going to be, I did really enjoy it. We follow Loveday, who works at a bookshop. There are 3 separate timelines in here, all following Loveday's story, though. We learned pretty quickly that there was some kind of event that happened to Loveday where she lost a lot that was important to her. And she started working at this bookshop, and it became sort of a refuge for her. And Archie, the owner of the bookshop, was my favorite. He was an older man who kind of took Loveday under his wing and became almost like a father figure to her. He was just wonderful. The way that he loved people and accepted people, he was the star of the show for me. Loveday had her burdens for sure and had a lot to work through. And I really did end up enjoying this book. I think I ended up giving it 3 stars or 4. I don't remember. It was a little slow at the beginning to get into it, and there was a little bit of language at the beginning, but as I got into the story more, I didn't notice the language as much, which is kind of what happens with me. But yeah, I enjoyed this, but it wasn't quite what I expected. Yeah, but I read that first. And then I also finished in print a middle grade book. I will save talking about this for the end of the month when I do a middle grade Monday, but I did finish Alessia in Atlantis by Natalie Lane. This was a super cute story that is a carryover from March. I did start it in March, so I will save talking about that fully until that middle grade Monday. I just wanted to mark it here as read. Then just this past weekend, I finished True to You. Oh, I listened to that. Sorry, that's going in my audiobook pile. Ha! The only other book I read in print, the third book that I read in print, is The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. I talked about this quite a bit in my vlog from this past weekend. Kristen Hanna, I just love her. I love the way that she tells stories, and this one was pretty bleak, as some of hers tend to be, but it deals with the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl and a young woman at the beginning, Elsa, who is tall and not very beautiful, and her family sure lets her know that. She is now 25 and single, unmarriageable according to her parents, and they're horrible to her. Just horrible. Elsa goes out one night looking to get out of the house a bit and ends up meeting this guy named Rafe, and they begin a relationship, and Elsa gets pregnant and her parents kick her out of the house. Her story carries on from there. Rafe's family really becomes like her parents. They become her family and really accept her and grow to love her. And they work the land, and Elsa falls in love with the land. I loved seeing Elsa's development throughout this story, even though it was super sad. Bad thing after bad thing after bad thing after bad thing happened to Elsa and the Martinelli family, because they live in Texas on the Panhandle, right in the midst of the Dust Bowl and the drought that happened right after the financial crash. So there's no money, there's no crops, they're scraping by. I don't want to tell too much. At one point, Elsa has to try to decide, is she going to stay on this land with her in-laws, or is she going to try to save her and her children by moving to California. And the way people were treated who already had faced so much hardship and struggle and toil just because of fear and lack of compassion really boggles my mind. I found it very compelling to read. I flew through, I mean, it's not a tiny book. I flew through it in just a couple days. And did I cry at the end? Of course I did. Do you see who wrote this book? Chris and Hannah. I cried at the end. But I ended up giving this one 5 stars. I really loved it. I loved the resiliency of people who had to live during this time. It makes me kind of sad that I didn't talk more with my grandparents, who also lived through the Great Depression and know their story of what it was like for them. I wish I had done that before I didn't have that opportunity anymore. Yeah, super interesting, very sad. You might have to be in the right mood for that one, but yeah, it was really good. 5 audiobooks. First, let me tell about the DNF. Not that long ago, I did a read with me where I sat on the porch and started The Little French Bridal Shop by Jennifer Dupuy. This is one of the books that was in my winter anticipated reads for the year. The premise of it sounds super cute. A 40-something woman, single, walks into a bridal shop, tries on dresses, finds her dress, and starts saying that she's getting married and planning a wedding that doesn't exist because she doesn't have a fiance or even a boyfriend for that matter. Super cute. As a single girl in her 40s, I just thought that sounded so much fun. It is not so much fun. First of all, the writing didn't pull me in. Even during that read with me that I did, I was not pulled in by the writing. And once I could kind of tell at that point, I had only read like 30 or 40 pages. I could kind of tell we also were getting the story of Jack, who is married and has kids, but things are not great with his marriage. And I could tell that Jack was going to be the romantic interest. And I was like, but he's married and has children. So I kind of skimmed ahead. Oh, and no, the final kicker was that the name of Jesus was used as a swear word. And I can read books that have some cursing in it. I don't love it. Sometimes it feels appropriate. I do not think it was necessary at all in this book. But when God's name was taken and used as a swear word, it was just too much for me. I was like, all right, that's it. I'm done. So I just decided to DNF this. And I did skim ahead, and Jack was going to be the love interest. I'm like, why is he spending all this time getting to know someone else when he should be working on his marriage or could be working on his marriage? Is there a redemption possible there? It just didn't seem like there was anything that was major enough to merit him not working on his marriage. Like, it was just lack of communication. I don't know. It was just ridiculous. So yeah, DNF, so sad. That was one of my anticipated reads. That just didn't work for me. So it's going back to the library. Now let's jump into the 5 that I listened to. At the very beginning of the month, I listened to The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. This is the first in the Bridgerton series, which if you've seen the Netflix show, this is the book that most of that show was taken from. And it is very similar to the show. I don't think this is nearly as steamy as the show was. This was definitely a little more mild, and the parts that did get to those sex scenes, I could just skip ahead a little bit on the audio. 15 seconds further, which is what I did. And there is one scene in here that deals with non-consent between this married couple, and a lot of people are up in arms about that. It's totally not cool. Not cool at all. And that was a bummer. However, I did enjoy the setting and the place and the time. Like, we're kind of in, I don't know if it's technically Regency era. I don't know the technical era. I really like Daphne, the main character of this one. I thought she was spunky and strong-willed, could stand up to her brothers, could stand up to Simon, the love interest, and her husband eventually. I really enjoyed this very much. Another one that I listened to was another of my most anticipated reads for the winter, and that is The Paris Library by Janet Skeslian Charles. This is not the cover that I showed before because this is the large print edition cover, but I did listen to this one on audio as well. This one was pretty interesting. This tells about the Paris Library, the American Library of Paris, which did stay open during World War II. It is set during World War II. We follow Odile, who is a worker on staff at the library, and we kind of just learn about how these librarians survived and what they did during the Nazi occupation of Paris and what they had to come up against, the relationships between people in the library. The war was a little bit backstage. It wasn't really the forefront. The forefront was this library and the group of people that worked together at the library and Odile and her life. Her parents are trying to marry her off, so they keep bringing all these eligible men home for dinner. She befriends an American woman who's there as a wife of an ambassador of some sort who begins volunteering at the library. So it's really about the relationships and how the library brings all of these people together and what happens when the Nazis arrive and things in Paris change and how does that affect the library and their job and what they're able to do. I found it interesting, but also a little bit on the slow side. I ended up only giving this one 3 stars. It was interesting, but it wasn't compelling at all. So it was okay. It was just okay. Then we have a random pick, which is what the point was in April, to just kind of pick what's standing out to me. And I feel like I've done that so far pretty well. But the next one I grabbed was In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle. This one is another birthday gift. Tula gave this one to me last year for my birthday. Thank you so much. I'm finally getting around to it. In this one, we follow Danny, who is an accountant, banker, something. She works with numbers. She loves numbers. She loves having a plan, having it set in stone. She's in a relationship that seems very solid. They are about to get engaged. One night she has this dream, a very, very, very vivid dream about life 5 years later. Just this one evening 5 years later, and things are not quite as she had expected them to be. This dream really throws her for a loop because it was so realistic, so incredibly realistic. The man she was with that night was not her fiance. So who was he? What's the deal? Turns out he becomes her best friend's boyfriend. What? So this kind of goes from there. This story goes from there. It is much more sad than I was expecting. A lot more in depth, not in depth, but a lot deeper than I thought it was going to go. Again, it was just an okay read for me. I was warned that I would cry in this one, and I think I teared up at one point, but I definitely didn't feel connected enough to cry a lot. I didn't care that much about Danny herself or about her predicament. I liked the best friend. I think the best friend was my favorite character in here. Yeah, it was just okay for me. So a little bit bummed. I feel like, I mean, this one was fantastic, but I didn't have anything else that totally blew me out of the water. But the last 2 were pretty good. That were pretty fun. I listened to Majesty. I talked about that during my vlog as well. This is a sequel to American Royals, which is a YA kind of alternate reality of America. What if the Washingtons became king? What if George Washington became king instead of president, and then his generations down and down? So I can't tell you too much about Majesty because it is a sequel to American Royals, and that would be spoiling things. However, I thought it was a lot of fun. American Royals ends up on total cliffhangers. Every storyline, we follow 4 or 5 different characters. All of them end on a cliffhanger. Nothing is settled after the first book, which I knew going in, thank goodness. This book kind of starts up right where that one left off. And then everything changes. Everything gets flipped on its head. Relationships change, people change. Yeah, it was not where I expected everything to go, but it was a lot of fun. It was a quick read. It kept me busy during my drive to my cousin's house over the weekend and my drive back. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Again, not very moving or memorable or mind-blowing at all. Like it was just a fun read. And that's okay. Fun reads are good. And the last book I'm going to talk about is another one that I did enjoy very much this month. It's True to You by Becky Wade. I also talked about this a little bit in my vlog over the weekend. I listened to this pretty much Sunday and Monday. I finished it in 2 days. This is a Christian fiction. It's the first in, I believe, what's going to be a trilogy. And we follow Nora, who is a librarian, historian, or not actual historian, but she's a librarian who loves history and loves genealogy and loves doing research. And she is quirky and has a wonderful relationship with her family and her sisters, and is very privileged, which I talked about in the vlog as well. Like, she just has, life is kind of handed to her. I mean, she's had some struggles, but also has a lot going her way. One day, this Navy SEAL John shows up and asks her to help him find his birth parents. He's adopted and has a health condition which is making him really want to find his birth family and kind of get his medical history. So they start helping each other, develop a friendship. Things go from there. It is pretty predictable as far as the relationship goes, but I did appreciate, like I have said before, I did appreciate the how adoption is portrayed and the birth parents and the adoptive parents. It's a little bit rose-colored glasses, I think, but I enjoyed it. And I forget how much I just love Christian fiction. Sometimes it's just so comforting to me, and I don't have to worry about language or too much sexy times or just scenes that are not going to be what I want to read. I don't have to worry about that. It's just not going to be there. So I do appreciate that. And I like the faith journey that Nora in particular takes in this book, and the way that she evaluates her faith and realizes a few things about especially how she's trusting God or not trusting God, and the conversations that revolve around that are definitely a part of this. I wouldn't say that it's kind of a in-your-face Christian fiction. There's a section at the end where she really dives deep into her faith and what's going on. But all along the way, it's more about their values and not about being preachy. So just there's that. It's for those of you who want to know. But I really did enjoy this, and it made me think about things in my own life as well, which I always appreciate very much. That is it. Those are the things that I have read so far this month. Actually, that's pretty good. Like, I finished 8 books already, and it's just, today's the 14th. I am in the beginning. I started yesterday reading The Star-Crossed Sisters of Tuscany, so I will be reading that next. I do not have an audiobook going right now, so I'll have to decide on something tomorrow. I usually take the little baby that I watch out on a couple walks, at least one every day, and I can pop in one earbud so I can still hear him and talk with him, but also be listening to an audiobook. So I'll have to pick another audiobook to listen to. I'm also still in the middle of Anne of Green Gables, waiting for Katie to hopefully continue reading that on Instagram, but I know things are super busy for her right now, so I may just finish Anne of Green Gables before the end of the month. And then I still have these are kind of next on my radar to pick up hopefully soon. And I have one more middle grade I'm in the middle of as well, so I'd like to finish that. So yeah, things are going. How is your month going so far? What has been your favorite read so far for the month of April? I would love to know. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you felt the same way about them, if you want to pick them up now or don't, or going to pass on them. Let me know. Let's chat down in the comments. You guys know I love talking with you down there. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will be talking with you in another video very soon. Bye.